Let's take a look at some legacy charts this week. Thursday, once again, already. So we always like to look at the VIX here in the line chart, volatility index, fear index. Historically, if VIX is down or decreasing, we're bullish. If VIX is up or rising, we are bearish. Currently, we are still cruising around 20, which historically is insanely high relative to where VIX classically sits, sub 10, sub 15. If this ever breaks down, BTC should moon. Take out that 50K level pretty easily. Got the Dixie here. This is the 30-week rolling correlation coefficient. This is showing a highly negative correlation. I will look at Dixie specifically in a second, but this is the US dollar index. So this says if the dollar is losing value, BTC is typically rising and vice versa. Makes sense what you expect to see. This negative correlation has held true pretty strongly since 2017. So anything bearish for the Dixie is bullish for BTC. Here's gold, which historically the correlations have been kind of all over the place really since 2012. Right now we're in a pretty negative correlation. It hasn't been this negative since 2019. Part of this could be people moving funds out of gold into digital gold, BTC. Part of this could be just the lack of excitement for gold relative to the new possibilities for crypto. We saw Tesla get in. We saw BNY Mellon talk about custody today. We saw Venmo, PayPal talk about expanding their services, expanding their offerings today. And it's a rolling news cycle, right? It's just who's going to announce they're going to do more with crypto next? Who's going to announce custody? Who's going to announce retail trading? That sort of thing. There are more S&P 500 companies who haven't announced that it's in their treasury than have. I mean, everybody's getting asked about it today. We saw Uber say they have no plans to buy Bitcoin, but they'll probably allow people to spend it if there's a demand for that sort of thing. So we're definitely in the age of the crypto mindset across the board. Here's the rolling 30-week SPX and NASDAQ. So S&P and NASDAQ, extremely high correlations here. Historically, these correlations have been more positive than negative and definitely typically above 50%. This one's approaching all-time highs in correlations, right? Between SPX and NASDAQ, I'll look at those. So really important to pay attention to those, even in your periphery, not necessarily watching it every day, but important to take a look at, because if either of these flip bearish and things go risk off, that will also be bearish for BTC, most likely based on the strength and duration of this correlation since the beginning of 2020. Here's the Dixie, the DXY, 88 or lower. It's really the big level. That's multi-year lows at that point. The current low everybody's watching is 88. Briefly tapped sort of the 89 level. Now we set up this fractal, this inverted head and shoulders fractal, twice now, late 2020 and then in early 2021. Both times it sort of reached its kind of expected 1618 target, maybe on a wick here. I think this went higher and then sold off. It looks not so hot once again. So if you're bearish on dollar value, you have to be bullish crypto. If you expect a stimulus in the US sometime in the next year, we thought we'd have one by now. Honestly, we thought we'd have one in January and March. At least that's what all the politicians told us, right? But it hasn't passed yet. When it does, maybe it's priced in, right? That's the other argument a lot of people are making. It's priced in. That's why the dollar is where it's at now. That's why the dollar is unable to find any bullish momentum. But maybe when it actually hits, we will see more downward momentum for Dixie, which will be bullish for BTC. If we look at gold, I've talked about this edge-to-edge short trade on gold for the past couple weeks, just continuing to build to that. Gold has been lower week over week for quite a while now, just continuing its downward creep, sitting on the yearly pivot, flirting with entering the cloud here. This is going to be a slow trade into the entirety of 2021 if it plays out. Below that, you've got the next yearly pivot and the 200-week moving average. So this could take a whole year to move between 15 and 16. But if it breaks into the cloud, I would expect to move downward, which again, based on correlations currently, we're not seeing gold and BTC highly correlated, so I'm not too concerned here. Maybe traditionally, if depending on how things are risk on or risk off, this would be concerning. But the whole every single market feels like it's just topsy-turvy, Alice in Wonderland type stuff. Here's silver, the brilliant minds at Wall Street Bets and or whichever disinformation campaign tried to quote-unquote short squeeze the silver stuff over the past few weeks. Thus far, they've been unsuccessful. Weekly chart, again, legacy stuff, metals stuff, just moves super, super slow relative to crypto. So silver had this multi-year, this was like, 6-year Wyckoff bottom, and it's just now starting its markup phase. So the trend looks fine overall. It's not as bearish as gold is, certainly, but it just moves so slow, right? There's other stuff you can trade. Here's the SPX. I popped on the moving average multiplier. This is the 2-year moving average multiplier. The multiplier is like 1.25 or something, super small. And you can see when the SPX goes bearish, it goes deep below that 200, not 200-day moving average, a 2-year moving average, right? This was 2008, global financial crisis. I don't even know what this was, but wow, right? And then in March, obviously, just absolutely didn't care about any support, dived. So right now we are about as overbought as we were kind of all throughout 2013 to 2016, which was a bit surprising to me because this feels so insanely overbought compared to anything else historically, and we're actually less overbought than we were in the early 2000s. So maybe I am too concerned about how overbought this looks based on the 2-year moving average multiplier. If we look at the NDX, same kind of thing. We were so far above the 2-year moving average from 1999 to 2001, right? Like, look at all this daylight above that moving average multiplier. And then throughout 2010, really to 2020, kind of stayed in this band. And just now we're getting slightly above that moving average multiplier. So maybe I'm too conservative, too risk averse, because this stuff just looks like it's screaming. Even if you zoomed out, it just looks so overbought. But historically, the averages are saying maybe not. Maybe not. It's definitely in be careful territory, but it's maybe not as oversold or as overbought as I think it is, relatively. Here's Tesla. They announced $1.5 billion in their treasury, 7.7%, which is massive, obviously. We don't know the basis yet. I don't believe. We don't know how many total coins that is. It's probably between 3,500 and 4,500 coins, assuming they bought it throughout January this year. You couldn't see it on the chart, though. On the Tesla chart, you'd have no idea they bought anything Bitcoin related. If you look at other charts, any hint or whiff of Bitcoin for those stock prices has been incredibly bullish. Nice little triangle here. It's funny, like when the DeFi stuff was consolidating through November, so was Tesla. Tesla started that consolidation a little earlier, broke out a little earlier than most of the DeFi stuff. But it's funny how some of this stuff lines up. If anything, this looks like some sort of pseudo head and shoulders type thing. Shoulder, head, shoulder, it's starting to break down. This doesn't look bullish in any regard, certainly. MicroStrategy, the Michael Saylor stuff, though, you can definitely see where the announcement came in that Tesla bought. Maybe overall Tesla's percentage or percentage of market cap versus MicroStrategy all-in approach has helped people become more bullish on MSTR versus Tesla. I don't know. I don't know what goes through people's heads or why they're looking at what they're looking at. Tesla's already obviously in the stratosphere if you zoom way out compared to some of this other stuff. But even MSTR is just screaming at highs here at 1,000 psychological support resist. So it's interesting just flipping through some of this stuff, how it all looked. And you gotta revisit GME once in a while, right? It's fun to go to the zoo, look at the animals, see what they're doing. That's what I like to do with some of these charts. I don't trade a lot of this stuff, but you just gotta, observe, right? What's going on in the wild. Straight up Burj Khalifa, Eiffel Tower situation, obviously unsustainable. Obviously this stuff isn't going back to 400 anytime soon. I hate to break it to you. That's close to a 10x from here. Just a joke of a chart that's going to be studied for years and years to come in finance books everywhere. If anything, the GME, Wall Street Bets, AMC stuff. Where is it? I had AMC somewhere. 1 second. I'll pull it up. But the GME AMC stuff is just going to be in history books, right? Forever. And here's AMC, same thing. Straight down, right? It had a few up days, kind of filled the gaps, all the Robinhood nonsense, all the you can't buy this right now nonsense, you can only sell. You know, all that has a massive effect, obviously, and this just wasn't sustainable to begin with. But again, GBTC, ETH, CME stuff, which I should have been doing every video, but I just was like aware today that, oh, this is all legacy as well. So GBTC, massive gap up today, or this week, sorry, this is the weekly chart. So massive gap up. The BNY Mellon stuff is helping, Venmo stuff is helping, Tesla stuff is helping. All this is just headwinds for people who want to get exposed on the cash side. And this is an all-time high for, a new all-time high for GBTC. ETH still stuck in the range, I should mention as well. There isn't really premium left on GBTC. It went negative briefly. If you just multiply this by 100, you know, that's basically where the spot price is for BTC. Multiply this by 10x, it's basically where the spot price is for ETH. There is probably a 10% premium on ETH versus GBTC. I don't really think there's a premium. But you could argue cup and handle here. You could argue inverted head and shoulders mess. I don't think any of this looks bearish at all. You could argue some sort of flag pennant. So we look good for up here. It's funny to zoom way out and look at this. Just death throughout 2020. Is that right? Yeah, that was mid-2020. Just death, death, death on the weekly chart. Super ugly. Here's BTC 1 exclamation point. This is the CME futures forward rolling contract and all-time high on CME. I mean, you can't argue that. Can't argue the volume. Just impressive all the way around. So all-time high for GBTC today, or this week. All-time high for CME BTC futures this week. Here's the BTC futures expiry schedule, and the 26th of this month is the next rollover period, so that's when I'd expect increased volatility. I mean, look at the crazy volatility we got at the end of the last one. We had that massive spike up on arguably, you know, Tesla or Musk tweeting about Bitcoin, as well as just general expiry shenanigans sort of lined up with all that. So February 26th is what I'll be watching on the next one. Here is the CME ETH futures contract. A little bit thinly traded here thus far on the early days. This is the 15-minute chart, and just tons of gaps. You know, not a lot of action going on so far. Basically no premium, holding there with spot on the cash market. So this is going to need some time. It just opened up this week, and definitely some interest. Not maybe as exciting as some people were hoping, but overall has morphed into a nothing burger thanks to the Tesla news. And then lastly, got to talk about Doge, of course, with everything else. Why not? Spiked to nearly 230 sats, which was a 5-year plus high. 6-year high, sorry. Excuse me, Doge. Excuse me. Insane. Absolutely insane. Every celebrity and their mother was tweeting about this, which was certainly helping pile on the poor, unsuspecting people into this penny stock type situation. And this will undoubtedly be, much like GME and AMC, a pump and dump, fade, multi-week fade, back to oblivion, back to sub 40 sats, right? Not sustainable, infinite supply, inflation is crazy. You go on and on and on. You know, the weekly RSI hit 94, all-time high there. So overall, I think we look okay for the correlations. We don't look as overbought on SPX and NDX as I think we do. Is the stimulus priced in? Is it not? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think, and happy trading.